And here we are. Welcome back to the Redshirt Sophomore, where we never sit out in perhaps one of the greatest weeks of bowl games that we've had. And Lord knows how many years. How many overtime games do we have? How many one possession barn burners do we have? How many upsets did we have this week? Uh, I mean, a plethora. CD and I got absolutely smacked on our picks because we had a lot of favorites. And I don't know. How about Arkansas State? How about Navy? How about Vanderbilt? How about Arkansas? How about USC? How about South Florida? Dog after dog after dog found a way to get it done this week. And yeah, I'm pumped to see this slate of games here that we have on Saturday because these are a lot of these are some shorter lines, but man, and then also too Rutgers was live too against Kansas State until late in that game. They were a 7 point underdog. Just good games after good games after good games. So I'm excited to preview this next set of bowl games, and then later we'll also preview the rest of the bowl games. There'll be 9 of them after this preview, and then also the college football playoffs uh, games that we have there for the quarter finals. So, CD, how are we feeling?
Fantastic. I mean, we just got done watching, the Las Vegas Bowl, whatever it's called down there, and with Texas A&M and USC, and obviously getting ready to rip this one. It's been a great bowl season. It really has. You talked about how the dogs. It was week of the dogs. Now, the week before it was the favorites, and so we'll see what happens on Saturday because we'll just be previewing Saturday games, right? If you're watching the full episode here, make sure you are subscribed because, like Ben said, we are going to be doing a lot more of these. We got the rest of the bowl season, the playoffs. We're going to get coaching carousel, transfer portal, a lot of stuff going on in the off season as well. We've been growing like crazy recently, which has been super fun to see around the holiday season. So thank you for that gift to us. But listen, keep going, keep pushing because we'll be here pumping out great content for you guys.
Yeah, absolutely. You said it. With that being said, I guess also right real quick before I get, we'll also have our best bets too. So we'll recap our best bets, and then we'll also have our best bets for this coming Saturday slate, and future bets. And you know what? You and I didn't have a great week, but that's fine. Um,
We'll
the
battle.
yeah, the off air taking Bowling Green for me was pretty brutal, and also triple uniting Oklahoma off air was also pretty brutal for me. But yeah, I'm ready to bounce back. Which, by the way, both those teams just made so many mistakes, and they could have covered and won. But whatever, doesn't matter. Those were good games, exciting ones. So happy to get moving forward. I got a new set of games to bet, so I've got no problem with it. All right, let's go to the Fenway Bowl. We got a UNC team. No Mac Brown. Mac Brown's gone. All right. I don't know what his role is with the team. Now it's going to be leading up to this. I don't know. All right. What I do know is that this UConn team is kind of live. All right. They're kind of live. This is a short spread. UNC is only favored by 2.5 points. That's what we're going to pick it at, right? And then I guess earlier in the weeks you could have gotten that too. So I guess like there's money coming in on UNC, but let's let's not forget about UConn right here. They've they've been a pretty solid team so far this year. If you ask me for their standards, they're a top 40 scoring offense in the country. They're top 60 scoring defense in the country. And look, playing the independent schedule for UConn is not always easy. All right, it's not always easy. So I
No,
I I think in part of the year they were starting the wrong quarterback. Like this is a team that's pretty live here. I would be very nervous if I was North Carolina heading into this football game.
yeah, you have a couple of actually really nice wins on your schedule, and it's headlined by Buffalo. And if you don't know, Buffalo is one of the better teams in the MAC this year. They won 8 games in the MAC. I get it, whatever it's the MAC, but it's a
They've
very
been
good
winning bowl
coaching staff
games.
there.
The MAC has been winning bowl games, except for
Matt,
Bowling Green.
yeah, which whatever. But they also played a couple teams in the out of conference in the ACC pretty damn closely, right? Duke, a team right that beat UNC, right? Wake Forest, right? Syracuse, two teams. That obviously Wake Forest isn't whatever, but Syracuse obviously finished won 10 games. They won their 10th game, 10 games in Fred Brown's year one. So listen, I think it's very very interesting. I think they've also been kind of flip flopping quarterbacks. You've had some injuries, you've had some other things going on. Forgot or yeah, Fagano's the guy, right? I really like him. He's not super efficient, right? 56% completion percentage. I get that, but he takes care of the football and he does not take sacks. That is something that I love. And if you're playing a UNC team who will get into who's going to be playing and who's not going to be playing, K'Mon Rucker, right? One of the better players in the ACC is not playing for them. That's their defensive line for North Carolina. Also, no Amari Campbell, right? Those are big, big losses in that front seven. I get it. Robinson, the running back for UConn, is not going to be playing there. Terrell Robinson's heading over to Auburn. He was fantastic. He averaged 6.8 yards per carry for you on over 100 carries. That's very, very efficient, very, very good. I get that. That explosiveness, might not be there, but you also have Cam Edwards, right? 120 carries. You have Mel Brown, 107 carries as well. Both of those guys averaged over 5.4 yards per carry. I like UConn in the spot here. At +2, I'll take them to win as well. I think those losses in that front seven are going to be pretty tough for UNC to overcome. I also think the coaching situation, everything going on there, I get it. It's a lot of distractions. Maybe it's good, maybe it's not good. But just the vibes right now, I feel like UConn's going to go into Fenway Park, by the way, cold weather, right? Not far from Connecticut is Boston, right? So you're going to have, I think, a good amount of support there for your Huskies. And by the way, the basketball team is kind of struggling right now. So I do wonder if there's some more attention turned to the football team who won 8 games this year, and you'll see some support there. Obviously, I don't know how much of a deal that will actually make, but something interesting to think about.
Yeah, and when I look at it too, I mean, you you played some good rushing attacks, and when I mean some, I mean what Georgia Tech, really. Like if you look at up and down the schedule, I guess Minnesota, but actually when we realized later in the season is that maybe that Minnesota team wasn't all that effective at running the football,
They weren't.
right? Like how many good, effective, really good rushing attacks did you play against this year? I would argue that's probably just Georgia Tech,
Well,
and
maybe Boston College, but you also gave up
maybe
41 points to them.
yeah, exactly. So I'm with you, dude. I'm leaning UConn here. I think they're going to come out here with an edge. I do think that yeah, some of those pieces, losing Robinson is a big deal. And by the way, if you don't know how good he was, right, there was what, like 3 running backs in college football that qualified, like that had over like 200 carries or something that averaged more than 7 yards per carry. It was like Isaac Brown, Ashton Genty, and like one other player. Right, did that.
AJ
That's a
Turner.
AJ Turner. That is an elite group to be in, right? So I'm not trying to minimize the loss of that, but like you said, I think they do have guys there. UNC missing those pieces in the front seven, the coaching, like I guess missing your coach, right? Having Bill Belichick come in, not that he's there or anything. I just think that there is a lot of uncertainty in the back of these players' minds. I think UConn has an identity. I think Fagnano is a guy. I think that they're going to want to run the football, and I think they're going to be able to establish the run. You may not think of UConn as a physical football team, but they've kind of played like that this year. The question is, I do think Jacoby Criswell is a good quarterback, and I do think that North Carolina has weapons on offense. Obviously, losing Hampton is a big deal, but there's still talent there, right? There's still talent there at that receiver spot that they can maybe take advantage of this UConn secondary that maybe isn't all that great, right? So, and you're also losing your starting cornerback Malcolm Bell. So I am a little bit nervous about that, but I do think UConn, if they can control the time of possession, if they can continue to run the football, Fagnano can play at his level that he can play at. Um, yeah, I think UConn can definitely win this game. I'll take a +2.5. I'll take them to win as well. So I'm with you.
Yeah, I will say about UNC too, like Jahvari Ritzie is going to be playing a lot more because you also have Travis Shaw, who had over 300 snaps, that's not playing in the interior for UNC. He's a really good football player. I saw him live up in Minnesota in week 1 in the Thursday night game. It's a very good football player. Bo Atkinson, he's also there. They both had 6.5 sacks. Those are going to be important pieces because, yes, you have to replace, the production of K'Mon Rucker, Shaw, right, Amari Campbell, Blitzen as well. But to get this UConn offense like off schedule, because if you don't have maybe the home run hitter like Robinson who can just take the ball and just go, right? But and also UConn did not give up many sacks when Fagnano was playing, right? I also want to mention UConn's receiver here, Skylar Bell and TJ Sheffield, I think are pretty darn good. And I think UNC, there's spots to be had against them in that secondary as well. So that could be something to keep an out there. 92nd in pass defense allowed, right, in the country. That's not very good, not where you want to be. And also emphasizing that spot that Omarion Hampton being gone, he is such a game changer for them. Yes, I get it. Like Criswell's solid for them at quarterback. You've got JJ Jones, Passor, McCollum. Those guys can get it done for sure at the wide receiver position. But I do think having a guy like Hampton in like these kinds of games, like we saw what it did for LaQuint Allen, right, in Syracuse, and how well he ran the football. We've seen other guys, right, just very good running backs, like be able to almost take over football games in these bowl games, especially if you may be missing some guys here and there, even if your left tackle, not going to be there as well. Harold Sampson, he's such a like an equalizer, right? Like, yeah, with him gone, I feel pretty good about UConn here. Plus, also, you talked about the weather yet? I mean, I don't know exactly. It's hard to tell.
The Northeast is maybe getting some showers. So
yeah, which
yeah,
North Carolina, they get a little bit cold weather there, so I'm not too worried about like the freezing, right? But I also think like not like the playoff games where it was SMU and some of those other teams going up north, but I do think it's worth noting, and also too that turf, right, or grass, whatever it is at Fenway Park, has historically always been terrible, right? And same with the Bronx. We'll talk about the Pinstripe Bowl in a second here, but it's something worth noting. And if you had a guy like Marion Hampton, it would be really nice if teams are struggling to tackle, if defenses are struggling to move and be fast. Have a guy you can just turn around and hand the ball to, and really give some punishment to the defense.
The Pinstripe Bowl. Speaking of bowl games in the Northeast, Nebraska squares off with Boston College, and I like this matchup because I think there is a lot of experience on both lines of scrimmage for both teams. All right. I think both these teams know what the other team is trying to do, right? You have some key pieces missing, though, right? On both sides, particularly on the defensive line, right? You look at Ezraku. Gosh, I don't know how to pronounce that. Eziraku. I'm not even going to try, but he's a monster, okay? Like, I don't have to tell you Boston College fans that he's a monster because you know that he's just physically your best player, and it's not even close. Grayson James coming in at quarterback late in the season, and honestly, I thought he was better than like what I thought he was going to be. Like at FIU, he was not very impressive, right? Now, I didn't think that was a great get. I thought that was kind of an emergency get for Boston College, and I do think that Bill O'Brien coming in there in that offense, like his offenses are more fit for pocket passing, pro style. Like Grayson James fits him more than Tommy Castellanos fits, right? I do think Castellanos is probably like, a better
quarterback. Like you saw it in the portal. Like he ended up at FSU right away. Like FSU, a team with some resources and need at the quarterback position, was like, yeah, we want that guy because he's a good quarterback. But also like system matters, like you're talking about here. Like it is a big deal.
Yeah, and Dylan Lonergan, by the way,
that'll be fun.
I think that's a great get.
Not long ago, there were some Bama fans that were, really, really excited about what he can do and what he showed out his first spring, I think,
I think Bill O'Brien can do a lot with him. But we're not here to talk about that, right? We're here to talk about how is this Nebraska-Boston College game going to go. Okay, we're going to pick this game at 3.5, okay? Nebraska's favored by 3.5 here. And I think that's important because I do think that this is going to be a close game, right? I don't have a strong lean one way or another. Like when we talk about bowl games and picking a slate of bowl games, there are games in here that you just have a tough time picking, right? And I'll let you talk about some of these opt-outs more, right? And some of these opt-outs, I think, greatly impacted this game. I really do.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not only at the player position we talked about with Ezuraku. I'm so sorry, guys. He's fantastic. But you also are missing some coaches for Nebraska, right? So you got some change at the offensive side of the ball, right? So Dana Holgorsen, who's been the OC kind of the past couple of weeks, he gets the full-time OC job. Good for him. Happy for him and Raiola. On the defense side of the ball, you're going through a lot of changes, right? So Tony White, very good defensive coordinators having FSU. He's bringing alongside a very good defensive line coach, Terrence Knighton, right? One of the fan favorites there in Nebraska, who did wonders recruiting, developing, all that stuff there for Nebraska. The DB coach, John Butler, will be the defensive coordinator calling the plays, right, for the bowl game. So that's something just to keep an eye out for because you're going to have to be prepared. Bill O'Brien in a spot here. All of a sudden, I look to Boston College, and I feel like there's a coaching edge there with what he can do scheme up defense or offensively for Boston College. You've also got players in that front seven that are opting out or transferring, right? You got the linebacker, Gabayer. You've got Jamari Butler on the D line,
Who's
as well as
good?
Stephon going to LSU. You got Stephon Thompson, who's following, right? Tony White and John Butler. I think he's been with Tony White for a couple times now. He's over with him at Syracuse, heading over to Florida State there. You got Princewell Uman Mielen, right, meeting up with his brother. I guess kind of not really going to be overlap, but a very talented edge rusher there. You got James Williams, another edge rusher there. You've got a lot of guys that played some snaps and can do some damage for you. And then on the offense side of the ball, right, you got a couple you got starting tight end, right? I know you know about him going to A&M. Is it Borkercher?
Yeah, Nate Borkature. I mean, like good football player. Like Fedoni, honestly, and I don't know how Nebraska fans feel about this, but I mean that could be wrong. I was not impressed with him leading up into this year, and I thought he played better, right? And even like down the stretch, like I feel like they were able to use. Now they put Fedoni in the slot all the time, right? And Borkshire is definitely your inline tight end guy, but you have depth there, right? Like, so I'm not worried about that one, right? I really not.
Yeah, and then you also have the running back, the tight end, Dante Dowell, who I think is a very good football player. What I think was their best running back for Nebraska this year. And you're going up against a stingy run defense, albeit without the best defensive lineman, right? But there was top 20 run defense, right, in the ACC there for Boston College. But also, you kind of switch your sides here, and you want to see some growth here. We've talked about it in some of these bowl games in the prep here. You get 15 practices to be able to use for these bowl games. If you're a young quarterback, such as Dylan Raiola, who's maybe hit a little bit of a freshman wall at some point in the Big Ten there, which is fine. It happens to everybody. Not surprised at all. He had a chance to kind of regather, regroup. You had 15, couple weeks off. You had 15 practices to get things right here and maybe exploit that pretty unimpressive Boston College's pass defense, right? They're 111th in pass defense in the country. That is terrible. There's 34 teams that are counted in that. That's not where you want to be at all. And Nebraska, you've got some
And
weapons there.
and you're losing 61 of your 185 pressures, by the way, from one player.
Yeah, which is freaking nuts. And
That's nuts.
you mentioned Fedoni, the tight end, what he can do, through the air, but you also got Banks, Nayer, guys like that Jalen Lloyd, is he, hopefully is he coming back? And it'd be able to be a little bit more of an explosive presence in your offense that you've kind of been missing. It'll be interesting to see here. I I'll give you my pick before I hand it over to you here. I kind of tend to lean towards Nebraska right in this spot here. Again, another game. It's going to be in a weird environment. The weather won't be great. It's going to be in a baseball field. We know how those things hold up in December, right? Great idea from the NCAA there. To go to New York and Boston and play in a baseball field. But I tend to like Nebraska in this spot. Barely. Obviously, I would have loved it back when it was at 3, right? 3.5, or excuse me, 2.5 to 3. But I guess I'll take the hook here, 3.5 for Nebraska to cover and obviously to win.
Yeah, I think I will too. And usually it's not necessarily because of one player for me, but Ezia Ruaku, hopefully that's how you say it, 61 pressures this year, 14 sacks. I mean, as a team, you had 27 sacks, 14 of them were from this particular player. I mean, and your his pressure rate is nuts. He's probably your best run defender as well. If you want to dive into the tape on that one, like that's just so impactful for me. All right, and this Nebraska offense line hasn't been amazing this year. I know Nebraska fans have their gripes about this, but there is the ability for these receivers to make plays, and they haven't done it. And I think Dylan Raiola is going to have enough time, right, without Ezra Waku just coming flying in there off that edge. And I don't know, man. I really think Nebraska can get Boston College through the air, and I don't know how Boston College's offensive line, which I think has been, we can agree that Boston College's offensive line is vastly improved from the season before and the season before that. I just don't know that they're good enough necessarily to stop Nebraska's defensive line, even with some of these opt outs, right? Even with Jamar Butler gone, Stephen Thompson, who, okay, he's all right. And Uman Yellen's like, all right, he's young, raw. But yeah, I'll take Nebraska minus 3.5. And I'm not going to love it, by the way. Originally, when I was looking at this, my instinct was to take Boston College plus 3.5. But I just after further review, I think I'm laying it with Nebraska.
You also have the right tackle, right? Ozzy Trapilo missing too. And you still have some talent there on the Nebraska defensive line, right? You mentioned a couple names there. Ty Robinson, 6 sacks there. Nash Hutmacher, right? The polar bear. He's still there to get after it. You got McGahee, right? You got Lenhart, some pretty Sherman, right? Former high recruit. Like you've got some guys there to get it done. I also worry too, the Lewis Bond and Hare, are those guys enough to really get going for Boston College? Against Nebraska and Robichaud, right? Kyle Robichaud, who's very, very good, right? 165 carries, 700 plus yards, 10 touchdowns, right? But this is a really good Nebraska front seven, even without some of those guys there. 11th against the run this year. And plus, you don't get that extra added dimension that Castellanos gives you in that run game to add the numbers, to get the +1, all that kind of good stuff. So it'll be interesting to see what goes on here. Yeah, like you don't feel great about it, but I do tend to lean Nebraska here.
The New Mexico Bowl is going to feature TCU and Louisiana. All right, this is a 10-point spread. We're going to pick it at 10. Okay. When I first looked at that line, right, knowing what I know about Louisiana, in their quarterback situation and the way that they've been playing the last couple of games, and quite frankly, the way that Josh Hoover has been playing, I was inclined. Now I know he didn't play against Cincinnati, but whatever. On the road, all that. I was inclined to just be ready to take TCU minus 10 right away, right? And then looking at it even more, I'm like, yeah, I know you're missing some guys, right? You're not going to have Jack Beck, who was your best receiver. Savion Williams was also a really good receiver. No Cam Cook. I I just still think this TCU offense is just they're not going to get stopped. They're not going to get stopped. I get that Louisiana Lafayette has had a good pass defense in general this season, okay, but how many really effective passing offenses have they faced this year? Really, like
Well,
dive
like
into it. Like Texas State, yeah, pretty good. App State sometimes, right? Wake Forest was able to move the ball very effectively with Hank Bachmeier at quarterback, especially late in that game. I
Tulane too, right, with Mensah.
what, but
But actually, he didn't even
are
throw the
they?
ball well in that game. It
Yeah,
was just
are
Makai
they?
Hughes.
But are they very proficient throwing the ball? Like Mensa was a good quarterback, right? But I think his value comes in like his athletic ability and also his decision making for how young he was, his eligibility. I think that's where his value comes in. I just don't think like South Alabama was probably like what South Alabama and Texas State were the most effective passing offenses that they faced all year. Like they have not faced something like this. Like TCU's like even without Jack Beck and Savion Williams, like they're going to be throwing the football all over the yard. And I like Josh Hoover a lot. I really do. And Louisiana, are they just going to? I know that this TCU defense has not been very good this year, but are they going to be able to keep up? I say no. I say no with the situation that they have a quarterback,
Listen, I'm with you here. 10 is a lot, right? And it's obviously when you have a
especially in a
defense
bowl game, right?
bowl game, you have a defense like TCU. You also have TCU without their top two leading rushers. One of them's a wide receiver, by the way, with Savion Williams, right? Are Jeremy Payne and Trent Batter, are they enough to get it done on the ground, right? I know Louisiana isn't great, 82nd nationally, in run defense there, but you're going to have to be able to do that too, unless you absolutely blow them out, which, who knows that'll happen, especially if you're missing some of the good players like they are back, Williams, Cook, all that. But yeah, like you said, I think Hoover's the best quarterback they've seen. I think Hoover's the best passing attack they've seen all year. It could be a different caliber of attack coming after them. That could get really interesting. You still have JP Richardson. You still have Eric McAllister that are there, right? I also think, too, TCU, right, defensively, you still give quarterback. Daniel Bale was not very good. He struggled against Marshall, right? 9 for 24, right? Interception, not much on the ground either. It was really, really tough. And I know you got guys like Lance Lejeune, right? The last chance you start, quarterback turned wide receiver is a dog. But I, I struggle to see it. And I think TCU, if they can blitz and get after him, right? Guys like Deal, guys like McDonald, Obiazer, Hodges, Elam Zor at the linebacker position that can do some fun things for you, it would be interesting. I think you might see a little bit more production, especially if there's no Woolbridge and Chandler Fields. Feel pretty good about getting TCU here at just 10 points.
I mean, I can't get the taste of that Marshall game out of my mouth, and I know Marshall's defense is like good for Sunbelt standards because like I don't think there's a lot of good Sunbelt defenses, particularly this year. But yeah, Daniel Beal was really bad against a Marshall defense that was good, but also kind of beat up on bad teams, right? Like Southern Miss. Yeah, I'm just all over TCU -10 right here. I really am. Also, too, like what is? I know TCU has not been very effective, like stopping the run. Do you think Louisiana's going to be able to run the football?
I think they're going to try, right? I think you have to in this spot here with the true freshman quarterback, right? I don't think, I think Davis and
Because like
Perry
they got
and
down
are
early,
playing, right?
right? They got down
Washington,
early, and then they didn't run the ball because they got down early.
well, yeah. I mean, if you're Louisiana here, you cannot play from behind, like seriously play from behind, right? I get it. It's a couple scores here and there. You can still lean on your run game, but we saw early it did not go well, and you kind of have to force to pass the football. Also, Louisiana too defensively, since their safety Tyree Skipper, who's one of the better players in the Sun Belt, has been out, they have struggled defensively. You look at their schedule; he got hurt in the Arkansas State game, and South Alabama got a win there and moved the football a lot. Troy put up 30 points on them. Louisiana Monroe is not very known for offense, right? They had 23 points as well and
Hardy
got
ran
got
for
stuff going.
170 yards.
Yep, and then Marshall obviously, just absolutely dominated them, for 4 quarters there. So it'll be interesting to see here. Obviously, you've got time to prepare in that bowl game. You've got time to make sure that your defense is playing better football for sure. But I don't know, man. I don't see this a spot here for TCU to lay an egg. And I think if they come out and they don't turn the ball over like crazy, yes, Hoover has 10 interceptions, but you also have to look at how many times he's throwing the football, right? 439 attempts, right? Only 14 sacks with that, too. It's pretty efficient there, and I've been very impressed with his decision making. It's still at 66% completion percentage, too, which is damn good. 2 out of 3 passes when you're throwing that many attempts is impressive. Yeah, I want to see TCU kind of handle business here because they got better this year as the season went on. They were playing really good football, and the only team they lost
And
to, right?
and Avalos is not the problem on that defense side of the football. I'll be pretty firm about that, but I don't know.
Right, since that first week in November when Houston just somehow put up 30 against you with Zion Chris, right, who threw the ball very well in that game. You've been playing really good football, and you've been beating solid teams, right? Texas Tech,
Eh,
I think Cincinnati's
well, yeah,
Cincinnati's better than people think they are. And also, your only
yeah.
loss was the last second field goal to Baylor, who's one of the hottest teams in the country right now. So I don't know. I think this TCU spot here, it should be good here for them. And it sucks for Louisiana because they had such a good year. They played so well for so long. There was like legit potential like playoff conversations to be had if those quarterbacks didn't get hurt, if stuff didn't go wrong for them in November and or I guess early December as well. So we'll see, obviously. And I hope Beal plays well. True freshman kid, right? He's got some talent for sure in state as well. But I just think it's going to be a tough when you have a significant quarterback advantage in this game. A lot has to make up for it, and a lot has to happen and go right for Louisiana. And I don't see it happening.
Let's go over to the Pop Tarts Bowl, which was a very entertaining game last year. Miami's going to be playing against Iowa State. The caveat here: likely first round quarterback Cam Ward is playing in this football game, as far as we know. Right, as far as we know. could have changed in the last, I don't know, half hour since we started recording this. Yeah, he's fantastic. I also don't think Iowa State's defense is very good, right? You look at, particularly in the run, right? In that front seven, I know that they've had walk on linebackers have to play at times. I know that they have some talent there, but it's kind of fallen apart in some games, right? In Miami, they don't run the ball necessarily a lot, but they've been effective when they do it. Like when they choose to run the football, they can. Like they have two really good running backs. They have an offensive line that's very solid, and they have the threat of the best passing attack in the entire country, essentially. Right. I I would say that I like Miami here. Right. However, Iowa State, you've got a lot of seniors playing in this bowl game. Okay. You have an offense that has very much impressed me, and a quarterback and weapons that I think can definitely take advantage of this Miami defense, which I was so hopeful for this year, and it just did not come to fruition at all. So Iowa State's catching 4.5 here, right? I like it. I'll take Iowa State 4.5, and I would say take Miami to win, but I, I'll take Iowa State to win. I guess Miami on a bit of a schneid, right? I know Cam Ward's going to want to prove something, but Iowa State secondary is not bad, guys. It's not bad. Uh, it'd be more concerning, right, if Miami got up early, right, and then they started running the football. Then that's when you have to hit the panic button, kind of. But I think Iowa State's going to be able to match, point for point against Miami because I don't think this Miami defense has been very good, and they've gotten out schemed, right? Like in games where they've played good offensive coordinators, they've gotten out schemed. All right, you're looking over at Syracuse. I'm looking over at Louisville, right? Iowa State with that offensive staff, despite maybe me criticizing the higher preseason, just promoting your tight ends coach, has done a really good job this season. And I think with like several weeks to prepare, I think that they can get it done here on offense. So I like Iowa State in the spot.
Yeah, listen,
And the ACC's performance in bowl games this season, does that
that's
concern you at all?
yeah, it does, potentially, but I do think there is a tier above what Miami is versus what I think some other teams in the ACC is, even though they did lose to, right, Syracuse, and they did lose to Georgia Tech. But I don't know here. I'm interested to see. What really intrigues me about getting on Miami, because I'll tell you, I'm on Miami right now, 4.5. I'll take it. Is like I think it's pretty telling to me that Cam Ward is playing in the spot here, right? And like how much it means to him to play in this game. And I don't think it's a spot where you're going to see letdown. That gives me a lot of confidence to see the mindset of the rest of the team. Because if you see a potential, top 10 pick guy, putting it all on the line in the Pop Tart Bowl, I think it's pretty inspiring. I hope so, right? I do think it's interesting because who is he going to be throwing to, right? You got no Isaiah Horton who's in the portal, right? I think Restrepo's playing. I'd assume if Cam Moore's playing, Restrepo's going to be playing, and George is going to play at the tight end Arroyo, hoping those guys can get after it. And then look at those big physical running backs for Miami. Offensively, Martinez, Fletcher, those big physical offensive linemen for Miami, be able to lean on that front seven of Iowa State. But to me, what I really want to see from Miami here, and I think maybe I'm picking them because like I just want to see this, and maybe I won't see it, and if I don't see it, it could be pretty bad, is this Miami defense is way too talented to be performing the way they did in the season, right? Way too talented. And I want to see the defense line get after Beck. I want to see them stop, Hansen, Abu Sam, Jalen Jackson, guys like that from that Iowa State running game. Right? I want to see negative plays. Let's see 3-and-outs, turnovers. I don't know. I want to see a pissed off Miami football team come in and play really good football because they had a chance to go to the playoffs. They should be playing in the playoff. And obviously, would they win it all? Probably not. But I think it should be really frustrating as a team. I also think personally too, Mario Cristobal has played Ohio State before in a big time bowl game, right? Back in 2020, right? You had the Brees Hall, you had the Brock Purdy, the Charlie Kohler, Xavier Hutchinson. You Iowa State Cyclone fans remember that, right? And you kicked the snot out of Oregon and Cristobal, right? Back in that game, 34-17. Now that Oregon team, it was kind of just Travis Dye on offense, and that was about it. Tyler Shuck was on that team, which is crazy that he's still playing football. But I don't know. I want to see Miami come in and just really kick their teeth in. Now, I do think Iowa State can absolutely win this football game, right? I do expect Higgins and Noel to be able to produce because they have done it against everybody all year long. But I do wonder how that defense is going to play, especially without like all Big Ten kid, right? Tyler Onyedem, right? And you got Snyder in the portal, you got Jones, a couple reserve guys. It would be really nice to see Caleb Bacon come back. I know he's been out for a long time for you at the linebacker position. That could absolutely help you, but man, oh man, I I just think I would be. I want to see Miami play pissed off and live up to that potential on all three sides of the ball. Is that crazy?
No, it's not crazy, but I also look back at their resumes too. Like each of these, if I was to compare, right, two, I guess, uh, I guess 10-2 teams before Iowa State played in the playoffs, right? I'm looking at the resumes and I'm like, they're not that different, really. They're not that different. Miami's best win, Louisville, in a game that you could have lost, right? Iowa State's best win, either Kansas State or Baylor, I guess, but Baylor before that was the Baylor team before they went on this absolute tear, right? Because Baylor hasn't lost a game since they lost to Iowa State. So I just think that they're pretty similar teams in that they don't play great defense, but I think Iowa State has a better pass defense than Miami does. I just think that these seniors for Iowa State are pretty good. I think they're going to show out for us. I really do. So if you're going to give me points there, I'll take them. But I might as well just take them to win, I guess, here. I'm not betting on them to win, but maybe I'll have something for Iowa State a little bit later. So
Well,
we'll
that's a
see.
good point here. I honestly like with Miami, they've been impressive. Maybe three times all season, right? So
Mm-hmm.
Florida, right? Louisville, I'd say is okay. I mean, it was really impressive going back and forth with Shuck and Louisville on the road there. First of all, hell of a game, but it was just really fun to see. And then the first 18 minutes against Syracuse, right? Other than that, they have not played like complete football really, and they didn't really play complimentary football against Louisville.
To the last eight
So
minutes of the Cal game,
yeah, I guess so too. But again, it's like, should you even be in that spot, Cal? We saw what just happened to them in the bowl game, even though it's a
could have
shell team.
lost to Virginia Tech. I mean,
Virginia Tech, yeah, Duke, you were down. It it was just it
yep.
was a lot, right? And um, I don't know. I mean,
I
this
think
is
there's a.
interesting.
I think there is obviously a quarterback mismatch. Miami has the better quarterback, but I do think that the coaching edge, I think, significantly goes in Iowa State's favor.
Yeah, I have been thoroughly unimpressed with Lance Giltry, the defense coordinator from Miami. And maybe I'm just misevaluating the talent on that team defensively, but I don't think I'm alone in that. I don't.
There's talent there.
There's a lot of talent there and at a lot of
Oh,
positions. So
it's
it'll be
gross.
interesting. I know you had some injuries and what yada yada. I get that, but I don't know. Here, I do want to ask you this here, and I say this every time we talk about Iowa State here. They need to run the football and run the ball well. When Rocco Beck throws a lot of passes, and I like him a lot. He was awesome for you last year when he got thrust into a really tough position after whatever the hell happened with your gambling and the quarterback. But when they don't run the ball and they don't commit to it, like bad things happen for them. Hanson, Sama, Jackson. We saw Sama really come on at the end of the season last year. Right, would love to see him go for a hero game in this bowl game. I do want to ask you this though, like if you get into a shootout here with Miami, so the total right now is at 57, 57 and a half, 58. Do you feel okay? Can Iowa State win that game?
I think they can, but I would lean in a shootout scenario. I would lean Cam Ward for sure, but
You got
doesn't mean they can't cover 4.5.
it. Yeah, I guess so.
All right, well, let's talk about the Arizona Bowl. Okay, Miami, Ohio versus Colorado State. Two teams finishing near the top of their respective conferences. Colorado State, a late loss in the season, kind of pushed them out of the Mountain West Conference Championship picture there, but they finished third in the Mountain West. And Miami, Ohio, lost in the championship game in the MAC to Ohio. And before that game, I thought Brett Gabbert had played really good football. I really did, and I just maybe it's a little bit of a bad taste in my mouth when we're looking at the quarterback matchup here. Brett Gabbert, Braden Fowler, Nicolsi. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that? I think it's a. I think I would say it's closer to even. I'd probably give the slight edge to Braden Fowler and Nicolsi, but if Brett Gabbert plays like he did the second half of that Max season, I think I would give the edge to them.
Yes, yes. And now I think preseason, I think it would be a lot larger gap than there is. Well, with the way Gabbert responded from the injury, right, and also with the way that Colorado State has really leaned on the running game. I get it, when your best player and the second best player in your conference, ends up not playing a lot of football, it changes how you're going to be. And that's Torrey Horton, wide receiver for Colorado State. They had 433 rushing attempts, right? At Colorado State did. That is a ton. They only had 345 passing attempts, right? You go back to Miami, Ohio, and they were 374 passing attempts, 379. So just about exactly 50-50 split there. Run pass. Colorado State leans on the run a little bit more. The good news for Miami, Ohio is they're good defense in both ways, right? Top half in both rush defense and pass defense. A little bit better in pass defense. I think part of that is the statistical profile that is the MAC conference, right, which leans more on running the football and also just less, high flying passing offenses you don't quite see, and where you'll see a little bit more in the Mountain West, which has led to Colorado State's pass defense being 102nd, right, for a team that went 7-1 in their conference, right, who had, albeit a tough out of conference schedule. You lost to Texas, you lost to your rival Colorado, you lost to Oregon State, right, who on the road there was playing a lot of Mountain West teams this year. So all the things considered, you did a lot of okay things this year, and you made it. You won the games you were supposed to win, right? You won 8-4. Like you said, that late loss to Fresno State kept you out of the Mountain West Championship game. But I don't know. I just think the defense has not had a ton of sack production either. Your leading tackler, Jock, is in the portal. Boom, Jock. The starting defensive end is gone. I think both of them, right? While Kalonji and Gatuaf. So it could be tough here. Tough sledding for Colorado State. I like Miami, Ohio here. Are we picking it? We picking it at 3 right now?
We're picking it at 2.5. I'm pretty sure.
Thank you. I will take Miami, Ohio with that. The hook is going to be nice because we've seen these close games. They get really tough now. If we have another overtime game where they get into the third and fourth overtime, it's ridiculous. It is. It's actually kind of a bad thing in terms of how to pick a winner. But regardless, so yeah, I like Miami, Ohio here. Defensively, they'll get some stops in the run. And, I think Colorado State, too, their defense, might miss some guys. And also, it's just not great statistically either.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'll take Miami, Ohio here too, but I know you feel a lot better about it. I don't feel great about it, right? I do think that Colorado State's going to try to run the ball, and I think Miami, Ohio matches up well with that, right? And you might look at the injuries, like is Moreau and Marshall, are they going to be healthy, right? You might look at them and be like, well, gosh, if those two guys are hurt, like who's going to be in there, right? Who's going to be in there? Uh, I think you got a couple decent options. I do think that Jalen Dupree is pretty solid. All right. I think he's pretty solid. He's coming in here 2024 and 2022 in high school, right? So however many years ago that was. Uh, 2,800 yards, 41 touchdowns, average almost 10 yards per carry. He's kind of dual threat out of the backfield. And for a team that's relied heavily on the ground, this guy also, too, on the season's averaging like 6 yards a carry, albeit on limited sample size. I think he's solid, right? He might not end up getting the bell. He might not get the call, right? Because Marshall and or Morrow might be healthy, but I'm not too concerned if those two players aren't necessarily healthy, if that makes sense. So I don't know, man. So I know it's a limited sample size, and I don't know his full story. Although all I know is that I'm okay with the running backs that are behind Morrow and Marshall. As good as those two guys are, right?
Yeah.
So
Well, they're going to need to be in this game here. Also, to play a little devil's advocate here for Miami, Ohio, they're also missing guys. They're also missing some really good receivers. on the offense side of the ball. Javon Tracy, more of your alpha, number one possession X receiver. He's in the portal going to Minnesota. You got Reggie Virgil, right? Maybe a little bit more dynamic, average 20 yards per catch, heading down to Texas Tech, where he's going to be joined by, right, your left tackle, Will Jados, who's also going to Texas Tech. Those are going to be some guys that you might miss. And if you're going to Brett Gabbert, you got Cade McDonald, right? And you got Mosey out of the backfield, and then not a lot of, real production and experience there. So we'll see how they lean on offensively and how they get it done, because Gabbert's going to have to play well, and they're going to have to run the ball well, because Mosey, obviously has been a focal point of their offense all season long, but especially without those receivers, Tracy, Virgil, a couple all MAC guys, could really hurt this Miami Ohio football team.
Yeah. It's crazy too, like Tracy gone for Miami. I'm pretty sure like their leading receiver has left. Right, like in each given season, I think the last 5 years. Or 4 years. I think it's 4 years because you had Sorensen, Hippenhammer, then you had kid that went to South Carolina that we love.
Gage
Yep,
Larmane.
Gage, and then you had Tracy. Yeah, Gage Larvadane, and then you had Tracy. So, yeah, pretty wild, man. Pretty wild. The turnover,
I guess they're
the
used to
personnel
it.
in the MAC is, yeah, I guess they're used to it. So I don't know. Next man up, baby. So yeah, more so. I'll just reiterate this one more time. The matchup, right, of Colorado State trying to run the ball in this defense. I don't love it for them. Right. I don't know how many points Miami Ohio is going to be able to score with, like you said, these weapons out. Although I do know that I think Brett Gabbert can play good football in this game and against this defense particularly. Even though, yeah, no, it has been a great defense, to be honest, for Colorado State. I mean, last year they coming off the Utah State game where they just got, kind of annihilated. Mikey Keene looked good. Fresno State a couple weeks back. So, yeah, I'm with you. Miami, Ohio, -2.5. Let's not think too hard about it, I guess.
Real quick here to finish up. Obviously, if you're still watching, right, first of all, make sure you subscribe. What are you doing, right? If you're watching Colorado State versus Miami, Ohio right now, listen to us. You're going to want to subscribe, see what we have in the future. But if you are betting or if you want to watch this game, right, it's on the CW network. So make sure that you're checking that before you're trying to figure out, flip through the channels, what's going on there. Why isn't this game on? But yeah, so you don't miss it, and also make sure you can watch it. But so it's kind of wild. Good for CW for getting a bowl game. I know they've been the ACC had some games on the CW, and I don't know if the Mountain West did as well. But I know they've had some couple college football games all season long. So make sure that you're on top of that, because Saturday there's 8 bowl games. So you've got some on ABC, you've got some on CW, some on ESPN. So make sure you're keeping track of your remote in the channels as well.
Let's head over to the Military Bowl. East Carolina versus NC State. Dude, I think this is an awesome matchup. I know that this is like one of the heavier point spreads that we're talking about, in our previous game, the line being at 7. I guess it was bet up from 5.5. Dude, this East Carolina team it's a new team, man. Like, Blake Harrell's got the boys buzzing. Okay, these guys love him. Caden Hauser, transfer from Michigan State, right? A guy who last year Michigan State fans were just holding on to this hope, right? That this 4-star guy, Caden Hauser, was gonna be the guy, right? And look at him now, right? In this system with East Carolina doing awesome things. Look at Sam Leavitt over in Arizona State doing awesome things over there, who was also in that quarterback room as well. Yeah, kind of crazy, man. I don't know about you, CD, but I think this is too many points, man. I mean, East Carolina +7. I mean, and that NC State defense, we talked about it. This was something that we nailed, right? One thing that you can't underestimate, right, obviously, is the coaching ability of NC State having, what we thought was, one of the better defensive staffs, or I guess he's one of the better defensive stats in general, right? So it wasn't a great defense, but Tony Gibson has done great things. But he's not even going to be coaching in this game, right? He's over at Marshall now. So I'm looking at this, man. I'm like, there's no way East Carolina isn't going to put up points in this game. Am I crazy for thinking that?
No, absolutely not. Not only are you missing, your defense coordinator, not only have you underwhelmed, especially through the year 106. 106 for Tony Gibson, coach defense. I get it. You've had injuries, right? The linebacker, Caden Fordham's been gone for a while. But you've also a couple cornerbacks who aren't going to be playing this game, we think are pretty damn good, right? You've got White, you've got Sissy, right? As well as Corey Cooley, who's been gone. So you could be out three of your top cornerbacks due to injury in this game. That's a real serious problem because you've got a couple guys at ECU, right, that are left in the portal, right? A couple guys, Chase Sowell is going to Iowa State, who they're very excited about. Winston Wright, kind of a gadget, very exciting player for them, is also gone too. But you've got Anthony Smith, who, by the way, revenge game here, former NC State guy. You've got the running back, Rajai Harris, but you also turn your attention to 6'3" freshman Yannick Smith. This is a guy who is going to get more run. You guy who's played really good football in the past couple of games, especially since they've kind of inserted Caden Hauser in the lineup. He's obviously a four-star kid, so he's got an okay arm. He's got okay legs. Not super, super physically imposing, but he's been really good about taking care of the football because Jake Garcia did not do that. 8 touchdowns, 12 interceptions for Jake Garcia. Hausler is at 18 touchdowns to 9 interceptions. Increasing touchdowns, decreasing interceptions, things you love to want to see. And also, too, Jake Garcia took 2 more sacks in about 30 less attempts than Hauser did, right? So Hauser's also been better decision-making, getting the ball at a time, checking protections, doing good things that you need to do as a college quarterback. He's also, can do some nice things through the air, downfield, especially you got 6'3" kid, Yannick Smith. So it'll be really interesting. Now, we
You're
talked
also
about
missing defensive pieces, though, for East
yes,
Carolina.
yes. So if you want to get into that a little bit, we talked about North Carolina State and maybe what they're going on the defense side of the ball. We talked about how ECU can exploit that, but I also think there's some spots here for North Carolina State to really get after ECU as well.
Yeah, I mean, this defense hasn't been that impressive in general, right? And you haven't been playing any. You haven't played a lot of great offenses either. You've played some solid ones. I think the American does have some good offenses, more better offenses than defenses, right? In the American Conference there, but you're gonna be missing, one. I mean, Siobhan Revel, who's an absolute monster at corner. He's been out since like
For a while.
it was early, man. It was kind of devastating. High draft pick, nominee, right? Good freaking football player, incredible athlete. You're gonna be missing your starting quarterback, corner Isaiah Brown Murray. You're gonna be missing your starting linebacker and Baker. You got a defensive lineman that's opting out with over 339 snaps.
Heading to Power
So
Four.
yeah, heading to power four, so you're missing good players on your defense side of the football too. And by the way, NC State's offense with Robert Denai, yeah, maybe not the best, but since CJ Bailey started playing quarterback for them there, it's kind of been okay, at times. Like when they've played bad defenses, they put up points, and the CCU defense it's not great, right? It really isn't. Not to mention all those guys that are missing as well. So, but the caveat there with NC State's offense is that you're missing I mean, what? Like you're missing Casey Concepcion, who maybe was a little bit underutilized in this offense, and you still got Justin Jolly and Noah Rogers, who are kind of really good studs there. I mean, expect those guys to definitely make insane, huge plays, right? CJ Bailey, I'm sure will be fine without Casey Concepcion, considering that they've underutilized him. Excuse me, a little bit this year, but yeah, I'll take ECU +7. I'll take them to win as well. I don't feel great about them winning that part, but I think they're absolutely going to be able to compete on the same field as this NC State team. Which, by the way, I guess, not so shocked, but after what we saw the first couple weeks, yeah, I was a little bit surprised that NC State was able to scrape out to a bowl game of a season, right?
Yeah, it was a rough start for them. Obviously, you had the Tennessee loss. Obviously, the Clemson lost. Terrible. Wake Forest was brutal, right?
You had to
Syracuse,
have a
you blew it.
comeback against Louisiana Tech, by the way. You had to have a second half comeback against Louisiana Tech. You were tied in the fourth quarter with
Yeah,
Louisiana Tech.
but that turning point was that Cal game, right? That fourth quarter, you came back, you scored 14 points. Bailey had 300 yards in that game. Listen, I want to mention too a couple young kids from NC State. Terrell Anderson, wide receiver position there, as well as Jonathan Paylor. So you got no Casey Concepcion. Those two guys, we talked about NC State and what they did. They had a pretty nice recruiting class, and it was headlined by Terrell Anderson and Paylor, right? Couple wide receivers there. Are they going to be ready to maybe emerge, right? Because obviously, yeah, no Casey Concepcion, but you've got some really, really good athletes in that room still there. You mentioned Jolly, Noah Rogers, but Anderson and Paylor, obviously two different body types. Anderson, a much bigger, 6'3", physically imposing guy. Paylor, a little bit more quick and elusive, 5'10" guy on a good day. It'll be really interesting to see too, especially with some of the losses for ECU in the secondary, especially with their just general statistical profile throughout the season, even with some of those guys. It'll be interesting. This is a fantastic game. Another added dimension too here is these campuses are what, like 80 miles an hour and a half away from each other, right? So it's not that there's a huge crazy rivalry between the two, but I think it's pretty important enough to say about it too. And obviously, it's not going to be played in North Carolina. You're heading up to, I believe, it's Annapolis, right? It's that military bowl, so you'll play up at Navy, but it'll be awesome. I think it'll be a lot of fun here. I do expect a lot of points scored in this game, so stick around for our best bets to see what kind of action we're getting on that. So um, it'll be fun. It'll be fun nonetheless.
Did you take East Carolina or did you take NC State? Sorry, I missed that.
Yeah, listen. When it was at 5, I liked North Carolina State, right? But this game with too much scoring going on here, and honestly, the way that I don't necessarily trust Waters and Smothers and Raphael to really run the ball dominant in that second half, the backdoor cover scares me here. So I'll be at ECU +7, but I'll take North Carolina State to win because I think it'll be a spot where you
Yeah,
could see some real
I like
magic
that.
and spots in
That's
the fourth
probably
quarter.
that's probably the sharp spot to be. But
I hate to middle it. I hate to middle it though, because it's the bowl game. You pick a side, feel good about it, but the reality is I don't feel good about either team winning. I just feel good about a lot of points being scored.
yeah, the way overtime's been happening, I mean, come on. So I don't hate it. Let's go to the Alamo Bowl. Colorado. They got some interesting stuff going on over here, including some important players playing in this game. Important first round draft picks potentially playing in this game. Shador Sanders, Travis Hunter. You're also going to look at, I believe a lot of the receivers are playing. I know Jimmy Horn hasn't really played recently, but they got a lot of boys over there at Colorado that I believe are going to be playing football. And same goes for BYU, I believe. So if you want to take over that, kind of talk about who's playing, who's not playing for these two teams, that would be awesome.
Yeah, so BYU has a couple wide receivers that are going to be missing. Obviously, a little bit less of a huge difference maker. It's Cody Epps, solid football player, but he's gone. He's also been hurt too, so not a huge deal there for BYU. Huge adjustment for them, but they do have their probably best wide receiver in Darius Lassiter, who's going to have to sit out, or one of their best receivers. I'll say Robert's pretty damn good too, but Lassiter's going to have to sit out in that first half because he had an unsportsmanlike penalty against Houston that last game. Sucks for them, sucks for him. Which, we'll see what happens because he's one of the better slot receivers they have. And guess who's gone for Colorado is the slot cornerback and Preston Hodge. Obviously he got hurt. He's also in the was he the portal? I think he's in the portal too, or he's at least opting out though. Regardless, they're not going to have him for this game. And BYU is going to have just about everybody on that defense, right? So you've got a couple, maybe, a defensive lineman. You've got Crew Wakely, right, that are gone. But everyone else seems to be back. I think you're going to get Harrison Taggart back. That's the hope there. The linebacker, very good linebacker for him. So it'll be interesting because BYU is going to have to really get after this Shador Sanders because when he is obviously it's one of the best quarterbacks in the country, right? No doubt about that. He's got really good weapons around him, even if Horn doesn't play, right? You got Wester, you've got a ton of guys there, right? Obviously, Travis Hunter, the Heisman, blah, blah, blah. Shepard, great. But when he is under pressure, right, his quarterback or his passing grade on PFF drops 30 points, right? It goes from elite 93 down to a little above average in 63. Now, obviously, that's just like all quarterbacks in college and all quarterbacks in the NFL. When they get pressured, worse things happen. And if Colorado's not going to have the right tackle, right, we'll see what happens there. You're going to have to try to get after them because I also do not expect Colorado to run the football. I mean, do you?
No, I don't, and I think that they will be able to get after them, right? I mean, BYU, they've made some quarterbacks uncomfortable. All right, like Kalani Sitake over and over in the offseason, right? As much as people were questioning Jay Hill, that hire is like he is one of the smartest men that I've ever been around in football, right? He's my guy. All right, you can't convince me otherwise, right? He just kept saying it over and over again, right? Bringing this guy from Weber State, it's like what are we doing? And you got a bunch of like, guys on this defense that are playing from Weber State, and you're like, how good can they actually be? And it's like Jay Hill's done a good job, right? Jay Hill's done a good job. Um, Kind of middle of the road, in terms of like, actual pressures generated, from this BYU defense, but that doesn't mean that they can't get after Colorado, right? Because we've seen teams be able to do that, right? It's more it's more of like the elite receivers that they've had that have been able to, get early separation that have kind of allowed Colorado to sometimes avoid situations where defensive lines dominate in a game like you're playing against Nebraska early in the season. Yeah, that wasn't necessarily the case. You can't really separate when the defensive line's on your quarterback in 1.5 seconds, right? So yeah, I think I'm going to take Colorado and I'm going to lay the 3 because I do think Colorado's a better team than BYU. But like you said, missing a starting offensive lineman on a team that maybe doesn't have a ton of offensive line depth or at least experienced offensive line depth there. That'll be really interesting. And then I'm assuming that Colorado plays all of their players for the full game, but I mean, is there a situation where they sit guys in the second half? I don't think so, but I don't know. It's something that you talked to me off air about that you were a little bit concerned about.
I was, and that's why you'll see on my best bets here. If I was confirmed that, like, oh yeah, Colorado, but also I do think too, like,
Lassiter missing the first half too. Might be better to bet the first half in this game.
but yeah, exactly. But also too, like, I think Travis Hunter's like he's. I don't think you're gonna talk him off the field, right? And I think if Travis is out there, I think Shador will be out there as well. So it'll be interesting too. I hate to even bring it up because it sucks that we talk about this in college football right now. But if I like, Colorado's got a lot of players that could be really high draft picks, and that would suck if something happens to them, right? And I hope they don't because you're seeing Cam Ward, you're seeing Hunter and Shador and all these guys playing, and it's freaking awesome that we don't have these crazy stars opting out in college football. All of our finalists and the Heisman are playing football, right? When their teams, like, I think it's freaking awesome. Credit to those guys, those coaching staff. It sounded like they were pretty certain about playing, but it is something that did concern me because they did say they're playing, right? But it wasn't like, oh, they're going to play the whole game. So we'll see what happens, obviously. But real quick, I do want to touch on Colorado getting to the quarterback, right? And Jake Redslaff, he's played okay football. I think, honestly, and in some spots you've played really good football in clutch spots, but what Colorado does well is they get after the quarterback, right? So 191 pressures is pretty good, right, in college football. But what's really freaking good is 39 sacks, right? That pressure to sack ratio, when you are getting after the quarterback, when you're affecting the throws, you're also getting to him at a lot higher rate than BYU is, right? BYU is only at 171 pressures, so a little bit less, but 16 sacks. That's 20 less sacks. And if you're BYU to change that, Tyler Betty's a guy that's going to have to get going. Shador has taken a lot of sacks, in his whole career, but this year too, a lot of that is him making plays, but a lot of that too is, he's attempting the ball 454 times. Like you're going to have 38 sacks if you're doing it that much. Some of it is self-imposed. He does a good job at sack avoidance too, but he also holds the ball, potentially trying to make a play, which is fine and whatever. But He's still a really freaking good football player. And there is a significant quarterback edge here. But the coaching does concern me, right? And you get a spot here where Sataki and, you know, the defense
Who's on the hot
coordinator.
seat before the season, by the way.
Yeah, where you get a spot where they get the halftime and they draw some stuff up, and it could be really nice. But yeah, I'll take Colorado -3 here, and I'll take them to win, obviously, but don't feel great about it. It's also really interesting that this is a Big 12 game,
Yeah,
so
I was
you're
just about
watching
to say that.
film. Okay, yeah, you talk about it a little bit, but
Well, yeah, it's just I like this because this is two teams that are very what ify. Like some things happen. Late in the season, like I don't know, you don't lose to Kansas, right? Both these teams could be. You know, both of these teams are victims of Kansas, right? Knocking them out of the Big 12 championship, right? So I just think that's funny. So I don't know. I guess you were probably going to mention that, you've probably seen these teams on film before, watching other teams
yeah,
and stuff like
that's
that.
what
But I was more so talking about, I just think it's funny that they're playing against each other.
a little bit harder to compare film across conferences, but when you've got probably 6 or 7, 5 or at least 5 or 6 common opponents, plus Kansas, who saw something on both these guys, you can watch that and see what goes on. But yeah, I think it's fun, and I'm glad that these players are playing. I'm glad that the Pac-12 is still being represented in the Alamo Bowl like it should be.
Yeah. And actually, the last Colorado game that we were previewing was the Kansas game. And there were a lot of deleted comments from Colorado
Oh my
fans after
god!
I picked Kansas to beat them. But here I go, picking you guys -3. I like you in the spot. So redeem yourself, Colorado. Come on. Let's head over to the last game that we're going to preview today. Let's talk about the Independence Bowl. Army plays Louisiana Tech. All right, we're going to pick this game at 14.5. There's 14s out there. All right, for any of you guys that are, you know, you know. This Louisiana Tech team comes in because Marshall unfortunately opted out of the bowl game after Charles Huff had left, and so many players entered the transfer portal, which we could talk about that whole can of worms. I really want to avoid doing that because this game should be about Louisiana Tech stepping up, by the way, in this game. And, Army, thankfully, right, these seniors get, a chance to play another game that they so deserve to play in, right? But, yeah, with that being said, Army's going to kill them. I really think so. This Louisiana Tech team is not good, right? One of their strengths, though, is their run defense. But, like, what are the really good rushing attacks that you've played against this year besides Jackson State
I
or
was gonna say, yeah.
Jacksonville State, right? I guess you could talk about Liberty, but I believe you had a banged up Caden Salter in that
Well,
game.
well, Arkansas probably runs the ball well, but again, like it's hard to compare Arkansas because
Yeah,
just the huge talent difference there, right? And Dominion had a good game, and Green was got his on the ground. So yeah, it's a valid point, obviously.
but yeah, I just think Army's going to be able to run the football really well, and I do think Army defense. I continue to have questions about it, right? But I do think that this Louisiana Tech offense is not very good. All right. Yay, you scored 33 points against Kansas State. You know, yay, you did score 37 on Jacksonville State, which was pretty impressive. And Evan Bullock played a great game. But that means Evan Bullock has to play like a fantastic game. And by the way, is he going to have his best receiver this game?
True Edwards, he's playing. I thought, right?
Okay.
Well, it's more about. I just
I
think
hope he
it's how
is.
limited Bullock is. Listen, he takes care of the football, which is awesome, right? 14 touchdown, 2 interception ratio,
So
67.
True Evers is for sure playing this game. Even though he's in the
Confirmed?
portal.
Is
I
he in
don't
the?
know.
Oh, is he in the portal?
He is in the portal.
Fuck. Excuse
So
my
he's not
language there.
playing. And I don't know what the
I don't think it
situation is.
matters. Well, it does matter.
But he's been visiting schools, right? It does. I think that matters. If you need Evan Bullock to play his best game in this game, you need True Edwards to be there. I
Well,
really do.
here's what I'll say too. So
Right?
yeah. So Bullock's gonna have to, and I was kind of getting that where, yeah, he takes care of the football and he doesn't throw interceptions, yada yada yada. But He also takes a sack, one sack every 8.8 attempts, right? He's going to have about 24 attempts in the game. There's going to be 3 or more sacks that could be crucial. And it could be even more, especially if you don't have guys like True Edwards to be able to trust the ball to throw it up to. I will say, too, here, though, Louisiana Tech, they do a good job of spreading the ball around on the ground, finding creative ways to run the ball, right? You've got a couple running backs. You've got Jimmy Holiday, the wide receiver, putting in work there, who's got 37 receptions, 47 carries on the year. And also this Army team, we talked about them, potentially their defense not being super sold on them. Like, to me, I look at Louisiana Tech and how are they going to be able to run the ball? Because I feel pretty good about Army moving the football. I mean, Bryson Daly is a freaking monster. I know you're missing Kanye Udo. He's going to Arizona State. I get that. 10 touchdowns, 1,100 yards. He's a really good football player. But I still think you'll be able to get him. And even without, the corner, Louisiana Tech missing their cornerback, Cedric Woods, right? Maybe the wide receiver, Reynolds, some other guys get some more looks. I just think this Army offensive line will move the football, right? Will move the football for them. But I think the more important part to look at, too, is Louisiana Tech, can they keep it up? Because you've got a couple guys in that front seven who are banged up for Army right now. They just played that Army-Navy game, right, 2 weeks after Louisiana Tech played their last game. So Louisiana Tech had a whole month off. But here's Army playing, 2 weeks later. And we'll see what happens. And they had to play 14 games. No, they had to play 13 games. But we'll see what happens there. And also, I do want to say real quick, you mentioned shouting out Louisiana Tech. This was a very hard decision because you knew you were going to be taking this game in your home state, right, in Shreveport, Louisiana, against a team you're probably going to be 2 touchdown favorites, 2 touchdown dogs against. And there were other teams who had higher APR scores that obviously declined the rating, that declined the invitation, right, because it was kind of thrown on late, and you've got teams with a lot of people on the portal. And here's Louisiana Tech willing to play football, and it's freaking awesome. And we'll see what happens. I hope they're going to give it a good fight. I know they will because they're in it to win it for sure. But I just have a hard time believing that it could. Army against teams that are not great is really freaking good, right? They dominated the American. They dominated the middle, the bottom of the American. And I have a feeling they might do that the same here to Louisiana Tech.
I mean, also too, like Louisiana Tech has opt outs of their own, like a pretty decent amount from what I'm looking at. David Blay, Cedric Woods, Jadon Burnett, Pig Cage, Jack Turner, True Edwards, and some of those are significant players, right? You're starting cornerback, you're starting defensive lineman, you're starting safety, and your best receiver, right? Yeah, and like you said, they still elected to play in this football game, so credit to them. But I will be taking Army minus 14.5, and honestly feeling pretty good about it, to be honest. And there's a situation where this game gets shortened, right? Because Army's trying to run the football, and maybe they're not able to run the ball as well as they would like to. But yeah. Plus, like, I mean, it's nice having more time to prepare for the triple option than you would normally have to prepare. But they also had less time to prepare for this game than some other teams had, time to prepare for these games. So I don't know. Just it's interesting, man. I like Army minus 14.5. What can I say? Sue me. Sorry, Louisiana Tech.
Wait, real quick on
Well,
that. So True Edwards, so he wasn't going to, and this is why I didn't have him in the portal because I did these things about a week or so ago. He was JUCO guy. So that whole eligibility waiver that came out for JUCO guys gave him an extra year of eligibility. I
so
wouldn't
he's in the
be,
portal.
he's in the portal. I wouldn't be convinced that he's not playing in the game. I,
I I think he probably isn't. I mean, he's visiting. He's visiting schools right now.
is he visiting? Or did he just get
Yeah, he's
offered?
visiting. He's getting offered. I believe he was visiting Florida State. Pretty sure that was a big one. But
Okay. Well, it shows you how valuable he is because he jumps in the portal, boom, right away. You got these Power Four schools looking to get after him. Yeah, that's a good point you brought up there.
so I'm just saying that's a big deal, right? Again, I'll say it again. I know I already said this. If Evan Bullock is going to play his best game, right, I think he needs True Edwards to do that, right? I really do. So, anyways, that is the preview of our games, right? Let's get over to the counter, right? Our best bets. I guess to recap, um, we both went 2-3. All right, so down 1.18 units. I mean, just Oklahoma, right? What are we doing? My losses: Navy team total under 20 and a half. So that last touchdown, right, that they scored in the fourth quarter after Oklahoma's freaking 50-yard run got negated. Uh, then Oklahoma -3, right? And then San Jose State first half -2.5. And against the best second half team, one of the best in the entire country, they lost the first half because, special teams touchdown, turnover that led to a touchdown as well. Um, and then they come out in the second half and basically score like 21 unanswered points or something like that to send it to overtime. And then they lose. But still, I thought that was weird. My winner is Syracuse -16, which was a bit of a sweat. Not gonna lie. And Rutgers +7, which they kind of I felt good about that the whole way. Your losses: Bowling Green -7.5, also Oklahoma -3, and then our first fades of the season. You were on Kansas State -6.5, while I was on Rutgers +7, and you lost that as well. Your winners: NIU -3.5, Syracuse -16. So we were both on Syracuse. I mean, regrets from you. I mean, like I don't, given the information that I had, right? I still like my picks. I'm sorry.
Yeah, the Oklahoma
For
game I will do again, right? And that was even we thought Deion Burks was probably going to be playing, but he would
yeah,
have done it again, right? Bowling Green was very disappointed in them defensively.
Harold Fannin,
And it was
200 yards. What
freaking
did we say in
awesome.
that preview? We literally said we were like, Arkansas State cannot stop other teams' best players, right?
Yep.
And he has 17 catches for 200 some yards and however many touchdowns, and you still lose because of some major mistakes that you made. Ridiculous. I don't know. I don't think that was a bad bet by you.
No, no, no. But yeah, listen, I mean, what can you do? What can you do? But I mean, we're getting right back at it. It's the bowl season. We live, we learn. I was super hot the week before, and now I'm ready to rip it again.
Yeah, you were 5-1 heading into that. In the bowl season, you are 7-4. In the bowl season, I am 5-5. So on the season, I'm 47-46, so down about 3 units. Uh, you're 48-40 on the season, up over 3.5 units. So as a show, positive, I guess. There's some shows out there that are not positive. They're way in the negative. So I feel pretty good about us in that spot. But anyways, here we go. I'll start off first because I know I got 5. I know you have 4, right? Um, I'll get us going with Iowa State +4.5. All right. I know I talked about liking them over Miami earlier. I just think getting 4.5 is too much for the seniors that I know are going to be pumped for this game. I also think it's too many points for a Miami team that, quite frankly, whose schedule, their best win being Louisville in a game they probably could have lost. Cal game they probably could have lost. There were a lot of close games on there. I think getting 4.5 is a little bit generous for a team that has a lot of seniors that are playing. And also, just a good team in general. And if Miami doesn't elect to run the football, and sometimes they forget to do that, they forget that they can do that, right? If Iowa State gets up early, I think that I'm going to feel really good about this.
They had a really bad matchup the last time we saw them against Arizona State, and it was rough, right? And Dillingham was in his bag, Levis was in his bag. Obviously, Scadaboo was incredible. Listen, I'm on Miami, not on our best bets, but I took them in our show and our picks, so we'll see what happens there. But listen, I wouldn't be surprised at all, and it's going to be a great game nonetheless. I'm going to head over, going to the New Mexico Bowl, Albuquerque, New Mexico. TCU -10 against Louisiana here. All the reasons we talked about when we did preview that game. Don't trust Louisiana to score late in the game when they're going to have to try to back to recover. Their defense has been pretty iffy, and also Hoover is a baller.
Yeah, I'm with you. Let's go. I'm not gonna reiterate everything you just said because I think you're exactly correct. So I love that. Then also give me, like we just talked about Army, give me my minus 14. You can catch 14s at places.
I
I
mean,
like that. I think that there's a good chance that that could push, but I think if you're only going to give me two touchdowns, I think that this game could get even uglier. So give me Army minus 14, and I know that you're on it as well.
I will too. Yes, 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 yes. Give me New North Carolina State, excuse me, versus ECU. We talked about that game. A lot of high flying points in that game, over 59 for us. Don't know who's going to win. I wouldn't be surprised either way. Do feel pretty good about a lot of points being scored with some of the defensive coordinators missing, some of the cornerbacks missing, and honestly, some of the more underrated wide receivers and quarterbacks that are going to be playing on Saturday.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. Over 59. I like that a lot. I see this game 35, 35-28. That cashes for us. I see this 38-35. I think this thing's getting into the 30s, right? So I'm with you on that. And then I believe you're out. Oh no, you still have more plays. Uh, I'll give you my last play then, and then you can give us your play. I will go Boston College, Nebraska, under 46 and a half. I think you're going to see cold weather, might be slightly drizzling. I think Boston College team, what makes me nervous is you're missing your best defensive player, and not just your best defensive player, like an unbelievable player, right? So Nebraska, though, you're missing your running back, right? If it is slightly drizzling and you're not able to throw the ball on this Boston College secondary, I really like this. I just hate the idea of Grayson James turnovers, though, negative plays from sacks. I think that could kill us for sure, but I like the under 46 and a half here for Boston College, Nebraska.
Yeah, honestly, I don't hate it. I really, really thought about doing it. It just worried me with some turnovers, worried me, um, just scared me with just barely, just barely. But it's also with some slipping of defenders or whatnot on those bad turfs. So we'll see what happens there. But those games I feel like are typically low scoring. So wouldn't be surprised if you hit there. Last one here, I hinted at it earlier. Colorado, first half minus 2.5. Couple reasons why I like this. We talked about, maybe how many snaps does Shador and Travis Hunter play and some of the other Colorado stars. But also, too, I think BYU's a pretty solid second half team, right? They've shown that a couple times this year. And also, they're cool. Like, Colorado's not built Colorado is built to have the backdoor cover get them, right? The way they just do not run the ball well. Also, BYU gets Darius Lassiter, maybe one of the better wide receivers, back in the second half, which would be huge for them. So, Colorado first half minus 2.5.
Yeah, I like that. I like that better than full game, but the last two times that I bet first halves, I have been burned. So I'm going to avoid that for your sake. So, yeah, that's a recap for Spotify listeners. I'm on Iowa State plus 4.5, TCU minus 10, Army minus 14, ECU North Carolina State over 59, and Boston College Nebraska under 46.5. CD is on TCU minus 10, Army minus 14, ECU NC State over 59, and then the Colorado first half minus 2.5 against BYU. Thank you so much for listening to our, another preview of our bowl games. I guess this is part 3 of bowl games. We got 3 bowl games and then 3 bowl game episodes and then a college football playoff episode. We still got one more bowl game episode and then another college football playoff episode and then, more college football playoff stuff after that as well. So make sure you guys are tuned in. I think some of our bowl coverage, as has been emphasized by the growth that we've had on this channel the last couple of days. Uh, you guys seem to really enjoy the content that we do here for the bowl season. I think we do some of the best bowl season coverage of anyone out there. So make sure you're strapped up. And the way you can do that is by hitting that subscribe button. So, and if you like the content, like the video, it's really that easy. It's just a bit of a rule that we have around here. So, yeah, CD, anything for us on the way out here?
No, thank you so much. You said it all. Hope you guys are enjoying. Hope you had a great holiday season as well, and hanging out with some family or watching football, whatever you're doing. We're having a great time here. I know that with the bowl season. So just keep on watching, keep on subscribing, supporting us. We appreciate you guys more than you know.
And we'll see y'all in the next one.